There are moments in life when you no longer know where you're going. Everything on the surface still looks the same, but deep inside, something no longer feels right. The conversations that once excited you now feel hollow. The goals that used to ignite your passion suddenly seem meaningless. You look around and realize you're living, yet you no longer feel alive. And then, on a seemingly ordinary day, you stumble upon a video, a book, or a quote that makes your heart tremble. You don't know why, it just feels like it arrived right on time. But according to Carl Jung, nothing is coincidental. He called it synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence. When the soul is ready, the universe sends a signal. When you've reached the limit of the old, what you need to awaken will find you at the precise moment you're ready to receive it. This video is one such signal. It doesn't come to teach you something new, but to awaken what you've always known, just forgotten. Because sometimes, the things that change your life don't come with noise, but in the quiet moment when you feel you have nothing left to hold on to. You can't explain it, you just feel it deep in your chest. This is what I needed to hear right now. Perhaps it's not you who found this video, but it who found you. And the question is, are you ready to let your heart open and receive the message waiting for you ahead? Number 1. When the shell begins to crack, the first sign of awakening. There are moments in life so quiet they're frightening. No tragedy, no loss, just a regular morning when you wake up, look around your familiar room, and suddenly feel you can't keep living like this anymore. Everything appears the same as yesterday: your job, your relationships, your familiar roles. But within you, there's a small, almost inaudible crack, as if your soul is whispering, "Enough." This is the moment Carl Jung called the beginning of individuation, the stage when the soul refuses to keep living under the mask it once built to be accepted. When the outer shell begins to crack, something inside you splits in two. One part clings to the social persona, the good one, the strong one, the in-control one. But the other part, the real one, just wants to breathe, to live honestly. At first, that crack terrifies you. You ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Why does everything suddenly feel meaningless? But that very moment is the first step of awakening, not because life is collapsing, but because your soul is rising. Jung once said, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." We often live our whole lives in false stability, the predictable job, the polite conversations, the repeated routines. They make us believe we're okay, while deep down, the soul is suffocating. The cracking isn't a tragedy, it's truth wanting to be born. When the soul evolves to a point where it can no longer endure falseness, the old must crumble so the real can emerge. Like a seed, before it sprouts, it must crack its own shell. From the outside, it looks like breaking. But from within, it's life beginning. Yet most people choose numbness through habit. They fear change, fear loneliness, fear emptiness, so they rush to patch the crack with a new job, a new relationship, or temporary pleasures. But the more they try to fill it, the wider it grows. Because what needs to be heard is not out there, it's within. In a small sharing circle I once attended, a woman told her story. Before her shell began to crack, she was always praised as the strong one. She carried everything: work, family, responsibilities, and never complained. But one day, on her way home, she stopped her bike in the middle of the street and burst into tears. There was no particular reason, just an overwhelming sense of, I can't keep doing this. At that time, she thought she was breaking down. But looking back, she said, that was the day I truly began to live. From that day on, she learned to say no, to rest, and for the first time, to look at herself, not to judge, but to understand. The moment the shell cracks is the moment the soul reclaims its authority. It forces you to look inward, to confront the question you've long avoided. Who am I when I'm no longer playing this role? Jung once wrote, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Awakening isn't a bright light in the sky. It's a subtle but persistent ache within the soul, the pain of birth. When you start feeling uncomfortable with the life that once satisfied you, when old joys lose their appeal, when everything seems fine but you are not, that's the first sign of awakening. Don't run from it. Don't rush to go back to how things were, because how things were is exactly what your soul is trying to outgrow. Let the crack exist. Observe it. Listen to it. Let it guide you. Because beneath that breaking surface, a deeper, truer version of you is being born. Collapse is not the end. It's the signal of beginning. When the old shell cracks, it doesn't mean you're losing everything. It means you're being given the chance to finally become yourself. And if you are in that moment, where everything feels blurry, meaningless, and silent, know this: you are not alone. This is the stage where your soul is calling you home. If you feel the crack within you, leave one word in the comments: I see. Because the moment you dare to acknowledge it, the awakening has already begun. Number 2. When the soul speaks, from crisis to calling. After the old shell begins to crack, a new phase quietly unfolds, not with noise, but with a silence so deep it scares you. On the surface, life continues. You still go to work, still laugh, still maintain the habits that once made you feel safe. But something has shifted. A faint inner sound emerges, weak yet persistent, like an echo of something long forgotten. That is the moment the soul begins to speak. At first, you don't understand it. It appears as an unfamiliar exhaustion, a strange sense of disconnection in a life that seems stable. You look around and realize everything is intact, except you. There's an emptiness that words can't define, as if you're living someone else's life. Carl Jung called this the uprising of the unconscious, when the buried parts of the psyche start demanding to be seen. It doesn't storm in like thunder. It seeps through your dreams, your inexplicable moods, your quiet dissatisfaction. Sometimes, just looking into the mirror, you notice something has changed in your eyes. Not sadness, but awakening. Many people think they're breaking down, but Jung saw it differently. It's not pathology, it's the psyche's attempt to transform. When the unconscious wants change and the conscious mind clings to the old, tension arises. That tension is the energy of transformation. Ignore it, and it will express itself elsewhere, as fatigue, depression, or events that force you to stop. What looks like loss is often the soul's language. At this stage, you begin to sense the divide between your outer and inner selves. What once felt safe now feels heavy. You no longer find life in your old job, roles, or routines. A part of you wants out, as if your current life no longer reflects your truth. That's when you know it's time to change. The soul doesn't speak in words, but in feelings, dreams, and unease you can't rationalize. Modern neuroscience confirms this. When humans face inner crisis, both the limbic system, emotions, and prefrontal cortex, self-awareness, undergo intense rewiring. A crisis isn't just stress, it's neural reconstruction, breaking old patterns to create new connections. In Jung's words, when the unconscious speaks, the mind is being restructured for a deeper stage of maturity. Society glorifies conformity, lulls us with stability, and makes us forget the voice of the soul. But when we live too long in a pre-written script, the soul rebels, not with chaos, but with silence. I once heard the story of a woman who had everything she ever wanted: an ideal job, a happy marriage, financial comfort, yet fell into deep depression. Each morning she woke up without knowing what she wanted to live for. It wasn't until she began recording her dreams that she noticed a recurring image, wandering in a huge house, unable to find the door out. Jung helped her see that the house was her ego, and the door was the forgotten soul. Her depression wasn't her enemy. It was an invitation to return home. Jung called this stage the call of the self, the call of your true essence. And the soul doesn't speak through logic, it speaks through coincidences. You meet someone who says exactly what you need to hear. You read a line that makes you cry. Or, like now, you stumble upon this video. Jung called it synchronicity, the meaningful alignment of the outer and inner worlds. A breakup, a missed opportunity, a chance encounter, all are signs orchestrated to bring you back to your soul's frequency. Just as a fever signals the body's healing, a crisis signals the soul's rebirth. It doesn't destroy you, it purifies you. If the previous stage was the crack where light entered, this is when the soul begins to speak, urging you to listen. Everyone's soul speaks a different language, for some through dreams, for others through fatigue or a silent urge to change something you can't yet name. And if you are in that stage now, let the soul speak. Observe the coincidences, the dreams, the subtle signs. Sometimes the call starts as a quiet stream, but if you listen, it will become the river that carries you out of the old land toward freedom. Number 3. The truth about suffering. It's not failure, but a threshold. When the voice of the soul grows loud enough, it doesn't just want to be heard, it wants to be felt. And that's when pain appears. Not to punish, but to open the path. Because every soul, before entering a deeper awakening, must pass through the gate called suffering. We are raised to fear pain. From childhood, we are taught to avoid all negative emotions. Don't be sad, don't be angry, don't be weak, don't cry. The modern world glorifies happiness as the standard and treats pain as a flaw to be fixed. But Carl Jung warned that it is precisely the avoidance of pain that disconnects us from our souls. For him, suffering was not evidence of failure, but a sign of readiness. When all false layers dissolve, the soul undergoes a process of intentional disintegration, painful yet necessary, like a craftsman stripping away the outer wood to reveal the core. A female painter once shared that after years of chasing perfection in her art, she suddenly entered a creative crisis. She couldn't paint, couldn't feel, even though colors, once her passion, were right before her eyes. Every attempt only deepened the emptiness. Instead of forcing herself, she stopped. She let the pain and confusion flood through her. In silence, she began to paint again, not for the audience, but for herself. and for the first time, she felt life returning in every brushstroke. "I realized," she said, "pain didn't destroy me. It only stripped away the false, so I could return to who I truly am." Jung wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. When people refuse to consciously walk through pain, it haunts them in other forms: depression, anxiety, addiction, or repetitive cycles. But when we face it courageously, suffering becomes the catalyst that burns away the old to make space for the new." Look at pain as a process of inner reconstruction. It forces you to stop, to face the parts you've avoided, buried memories, repressed emotions, long-standing limitations. In that phase, you may feel weak, empty, lost. But that weakness makes you real. When you stop controlling and allow yourself to fully feel, you enter a new state, where light and shadow within you begin to converse. Jung called it integration, the merging of opposites within the soul, when you stop dividing yourself into good and bad and begin to become whole. In a letter to a student, Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That darkness is not your enemy. It is the part of your soul that hasn't yet been loved." In mythology, Prometheus stole fire from the gods, the symbol of consciousness, to give to mankind. For that, he was chained to a rock, and every day an eagle ate his liver. It was punishment, but also a symbol of awakening. To gain light, man must endure pain. The liver is devoured each day but regenerates each night, an eternal cycle of destruction and rebirth. Jung saw Prometheus as the archetype of the human soul, ever striving beyond limits, even at the cost of suffering. And just like Prometheus, humans are not destroyed by suffering, they are expanded by it. No one enters a new life without first dying to the old one. That death is not tragedy, it is the initiation of the soul. When you lose everything that once defined you, only one thing remains: presence. Perhaps you are in that phase now, where everything inside seems to fall apart. You feel alone, adrift, uncertain of anything. But remember, pain doesn't come to shrink you, but to open you. It removes what no longer fits, so you can touch what is real. Look back at your life. How many losses once felt like endings, but eventually led you to something truer, deeper, more alive? Suffering, when seen through the eyes of the soul, always carries a hidden order. So if you are standing in the storm, don't try to make it disappear. Stand still and listen. Behind every thunderclap lies a message from the soul whispering, "You are standing at the threshold." This video did not appear before you by accident. No synchronicity is random when the soul is ready to shed its old skin. You may feel everything collapsing, but this is not the end. It's the sign that something new is about to be born. Now, I invite you to pause. Take a deep breath and recall the moment in your life when you realized, "I can't live like this anymore." Share that story in the comments, not just to release it, but because your story might be the reminder someone else needs to keep going. Because all of us, in our own way, are learning the same thing. Suffering doesn't come to destroy, it comes to guide. Number 4, awakening from the crowd, when the soul no longer wants to blend in. After crossing the threshold of pain, you realize you can never go back. The things that once excited you, the conversations, ambitions, desires to prove, now feel distant. Not because you despise them, but because you see They were never truly yours. Pain peeled away the false layers, revealing what was hidden beneath the crowd. There is a subtler kind of sleep, not of the body, but of consciousness. It's when we believe that living like everyone else means being safe. When the crowd laughs, we smile. When it's silent, we hush. Bit by bit, we trade our souls for belonging. Carl Jung once wrote, "The larger the crowd, the more negligible the individual." He warned that the disease of modernity is not chaos, but conformity, when people lose their inner voice and start thinking, feeling, and acting as the collective does. They stop asking, "Is this true for me?" and instead ask, "What will others think?" When the soul awakens, that conformity becomes suffocating. You start to feel alien in familiar places, small talk, superficial goals, polite relationships, shared dreams crafted by society. You no longer want to chase, but you also don't know where to go. This is the in-between, where you stand between two worlds, one of external noise and one of inner silence. And only by staying in that silence long enough can you hear the real voice within. Imagine a bird that has always flown in a flock. It feels safe following the group. But one day, an instinct calls it toward a different sky. It trembles, afraid, longing to return. But the old sky is now too small. When it dares to leave, the first thing it meets is loneliness. But within that space, its true wings begin to work. Similarly, the loneliness after awakening isn't punishment. It's the space your soul needs to expand. Jung called this the crisis of separation. It's when you realize you no longer resonate with what was once normal. You may feel lost, but that's proof that individuality is forming. Only when you are no longer pulled by the gravity of the crowd can you find your true center. A female film director once shared that for years, she made movies to please critics. Each praise brought relief. Each criticism crushed her. Until one day, she couldn't write a single line of script. "I realized," she said, "I knew how to make a good film, but I no longer knew how to make an honest one." At that moment, she stopped, not out of rebellion, but to listen. And in the silence of months, a new story emerged, for the first time, not for anyone else but for herself. The film didn't win awards, but it made her feel alive. "I lost my reputation," she said, "but I found my soul." That is the essence of leaving the collective sleep. We don't have to fight the crowd. We simply stop letting it define our worth. Because the truth is, the crowd doesn't exist. It's only countless individuals afraid of being alone. That fear keeps them trapped in sameness. Awakening from the crowd doesn't mean turning against the world. It means stopping the world from deciding who you are. When you dare to live honestly, you don't lose connection. You trade the crowd for your center. And from that center, a new order forms. One not built on applause, but on inner stillness. Jung said that the awakening journey begins in loneliness, but ends in a deeper unity, not with the crowd, but with life itself. When you stop seeking validation outside, you begin to sense something sacred inside, presence. Maybe that's why this video found you, not by chance, but because your soul is ready. Ready to step away from the crowd, to pause amid the noise, to hear again the smallest, truest voice within. I'm still here. Number 5. The fearful leap from pretending to being real. After the soul leaves the crowd, you think you're free, but that's only the beginning. Because the hardest part isn't leaving others, it's leaving the false version of yourself. From here, awakening demands one thing: the leap. The leap from what is safe, familiar, and false to what is raw, uncertain, but real. Jung called it the psychic leap, an inner decision. I will no longer live a lie. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most terrifying moments of human life. Because the old self doesn't let go easily. It pulls you back with fear, logic, habits, and the illusion of safety. It whispers, if you live truthfully, they'll leave you. If you stop, you'll lose everything, but the soul no longer listens. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Because when you truly face yourself, you don't just see the beautiful parts, you see the shadows, the selfishness, the wounds, the fragments you've buried under moral masks." Truth is never comfortable, but it is always liberating. Neuroscience now confirms Jung's insight. Studies on neuroplasticity show that when we face truth and change habitual thought patterns, old neural pathways, linked to fear and defense, dissolve, giving way to new ones, linked to awareness and creativity. In other words, when you live truthfully, your brain literally rewires itself. But before rebirth comes the in-between, the dark corridor between two selves. Here, you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you'll be. Everything shakes, relationships shift, jobs feel wrong, beliefs crumble. You might feel empty, even lost. But in that barren space, the soul begins to breathe. Jung compared this to facing your inner dragon, the symbol of fear and resistance before transformation. The dragon isn't your enemy. It guards your treasure. It roars only when you approach your truest self. Most people turn back, frightened by its fire, the fire of uncertainty, solitude, and vulnerability. But those who stand still discover, the dragon only burns when you run. When you face it, it becomes light. A friend of mine once shared that for years in her marriage, she tried to be the perfect wife, gentle, understanding, endlessly accommodating, out of fear of being abandoned. She smiled while her heart broke, stayed silent when hurt, carried the entire weight of harmony. But the more she tried, the more she disappeared. One evening, while setting the dinner table, she suddenly dropped her chopsticks and cried, not because of betrayal or cruelty, but because she realized, I'm no longer myself. From that day, she began saying no to what hurt her, allowed herself to rest, to read, to walk, to simply be. People said she had changed, but day by day, she felt lighter. She no longer lived to be loved, she lived to love, from truth. One day her husband said, "You're different, but more beautiful than ever." She smiled. "No, I'm just not afraid anymore." That is the leap Jung spoke of, the leap from fear to honesty, from pretending to living. It's never easy. The false self is persuasive. It knows how to act fine, how to convince you that safety matters more than freedom. But the soul wasn't born to be safe, it was born to be true. If you're scared, it doesn't mean you're off track. It means you're entering the real. Fear isn't a stop sign. It's the gatekeeper asking, are you ready to let go of the old? Like a climber who must release the lower ledge to reach the higher one, in that moment of letting go, nothing is certain. But if you don't release, you'll never rise. And this video comes to remind you, if you're standing at the edge of something, a decision, a change, a release, know that fear isn't the cue to retreat. It's the sign that you're touching the soul's doorway. If this video resonates, click like as a silent vow to yourself. I'm ready to move toward what's real. Sometimes, one small click can be a sacred promise between you and your soul, that you will no longer pretend to be okay, no longer shrink to fit others. Number 6. No one is coming to save you. Embrace total responsibility. No teacher, no savior, no video, no book can walk the path for you. This is the moment when the soul stops waiting for miracles and becomes its own miracle. Jung said, "No one can build you the bridge on which you, and only you, must cross the river of life." Every teaching, every guidance, every helping hand is just a torch. The bridge must be built by you. This is the essence of individuation, the loneliest yet most necessary journey of the soul. After leaving the crowd, we often fall into the next illusion. Someone will show me the way. But that's only the echo of the savior archetype. The inner child still believing someone, something, or some event will rescue us from pain. It's the voice of the wounded child, once unprotected, still waiting for a grown-up to come save me. But Jung warned, if we don't recognize it, that child will keep running our adult lives. We seek the savior in love, a person who makes us feel enough. We seek it in career, a success that gives us worth. We seek it in spirituality, a guru, a ritual, a philosophy that grants enlightenment. But here lies the paradox. The more we wait to be saved, the more we give away our power. When you place your transformation in someone else's hands, you surrender your freedom. A woman once shared in Jungian therapy that after her divorce, she spiraled into confusion. She devoured self-help books, attended workshops, meditated, healed, but still felt empty. "I thought if I found the right teacher, I'd be okay," she said. "But one day, I broke down crying and realized, no one can walk into me. I have to do it myself." From that day, she stopped searching outward and began every morning writing in her journal, just listening to herself. Months later, she no longer felt fine in a fake way. She felt genuinely peaceful. "I didn't need a guide," she said. "I found the path inside me." That is the turning point Jung called radical responsibility, taking full ownership of your life. It doesn't mean you caused all pain. It means you own your responses and refuse to stay trapped in suffering. We can't control circumstances, but we can choose not to let them control us. In an interview, actress Viola Davis once said, "The day I stopped waiting for someone to choose me was the day I finally chose myself." That is pure Jungian truth. Only when you stop giving your power away to the outer world do you begin your individuation. If you look closely, every spiritual journey starts here, accepting that no one owes you salvation. Parents don't owe you happiness. Lovers don't owe you peace. Life doesn't owe you fairness. All those things are creations you must generate from within. Why then do we fear responsibility? Because to accept it means losing the role of victim. And the victim role feels safe. It grants sympathy, exemption, someone to blame. Leaving it is like leaving a warm cocoon. You feel naked, alone, with no one left to fault. But that's when true strength begins. When you live with radical responsibility, something extraordinary happens. Resentment fades. You realize that everything, even pain, comes to illuminate what within you still needs to be seen. When someone hurts you, they only touch an unhealed wound. When a door closes, it only turns you toward the direction of light. That's why Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." True responsibility is realizing that destiny doesn't come from outside. It's shaped by the parts of you haven't yet understood. If you're in a wavering phase, stop searching for a savior. Turn inward, face what you've avoided, and ask, if I were the only one who could save myself, what would I do right now? That answer, however small, is where real power begins. Because ultimately, this journey isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the only one who can live your life fully. Number 7. When you stop searching, you become what you were searching for. After all the layers, cracking, crisis, loss, leaving the crowd, daring to be real, and taking full responsibility, something miraculous happens. You stop searching. Not because you found everything, but because you realize there was never anything missing. The journey doesn't end with becoming a better version of yourself, but by returning completely to the one you've always been. This is the stage Jung called the self, the union of consciousness and unconsciousness, light and shadow, the small I and the vast soul. Here, there's no longer a struggle between who I should be and who I am. Everything quiets. No more strife. That is what Jung called integration, when soul and life are no longer separate. When you cook, it's meditation. When you work, it's meditation. When you speak, it's meditation. Your presence itself becomes a source of peace for others, without effort. A Tibetan monk once said, "When I was young, I practiced to attain enlightenment. When I grew old, I just drank tea." It sounds simple, but it holds the essence of Jungian wisdom. When you stop trying to be special, you return to simplicity. And in that simplicity lies the sacred. If this stage had an image, it would be a lake after a storm. When the wind stops, the water no longer roars. It simply rests, and in that stillness, the whole sky is reflected. Not because the lake tries to be calm, but because it has learned from the wind. So it is with life. When you stop resisting, stop forcing meaning, everything becomes clear on its own. And in that stillness, miracles unfold. You stop chasing love, and love finds you. You stop seeking purpose, and everything you do becomes meaningful. You stop demanding perfection and realize everything has always been perfect in its own way. You stop asking, "What must I do to be happy?" Because you're already living the answer. If this journey had a sound, it would be silence. a silence not empty, but vast as the ocean. In that silence, you begin to sense what Jung called living in synchronicity. Coincidences no longer surprise you because you know the universe never mistimes. Everything arrives the moment you're ready. Just like this video, it didn't find you randomly. It came at the exact moment your soul was quiet enough to hear its inner call. Because awakening is never a climb outward, it's a return inward. And when you return deep enough, you realize the soul never wandered. You simply forgot the way back. Now, everything you touch holds meaning. Not because it's grand, but because you are fully present within it. If you've reached this point, perhaps this video didn't find you to awaken you, but to remind you that you've already awakened. There is nothing left to achieve, no path left to reach, only one thing left to practice: to live. If you understand this, write one simple sentence in the comments. I remember, because once you remember, everything is complete. As you reach the end of this journey, you'll see nothing in life was ever random. Every meeting, every loss, every moment of confusion was the universe whispering, "It's time. Time to stop, listen, and look inward, to the place where your soul has always waited to be seen, to live fully, clearly, and freely, in a peace deeper than all conditions." This video didn't find you to change you. It came to remind you that you were never lost. Everything you need is already within you, just waiting for you to remember. Because sometimes, awakening doesn't arrive with thunder. It arrives in the quiet moment you realize you're finally ready to live truly, without running, without pretending, just living in full awareness and love. If this video touched you, share it with someone who might be walking through their own silence. And don't forget to subscribe, because whenever your soul is ready, messages like this will find you again, right time, right way, as gentle reminders that you were never lost. You've simply been on your way home.